In this first part, we're going to create our title screen, one that kind of resizes fluidly depending on the screen that the player is playing with. Then we will create reusable UI components, so buttons that allow you to start the game, to change scene, to be precise, and to quit your Godot game, your applications. Let's get started. So here I am starting where we left off in the previous part or chapter. The level might look a bit different because this is the level from the final project and not the one I created live for the tutorials. But we're starting with our level here and we want to create our title screen. For that, let's go to Scene, New Scene, and we're going to create User Interface. So in Godot, when you add a node, all the nodes under Control, the green icons, are user interface nodes. All of these have special properties that they share. If you select your control node and go to the inspector, you will see there are quite a few of them actually. The anchor, margin, grow direction, the rectangle, which is the rectangle that you can see in the viewport right now, hint focus mouse, etc. We're not going to see all of them because the system is quite complex. It's designed to allow you to make interfaces like the Godot editor itself with tabs, with resizable columns, etc. You can use them to create your tools and plugins. The Godot itself, all the user interface is made with this system, with these control nodes. For an example of what you can achieve, here is RPG in a Box, a tool to create 3D voxel-based RPGs made entirely in Godot. So everything you can see in the video right now is made with this UI system. Now, going back to our user interface, the first node is going to serve a bit as a container. So it will be the main base for our screen that we can easily resize with the selection tool by clicking and dragging on one of the handles. So everything will fluidly rearrange inside of it based on the parameters we'll give to the control nodes. We'll call that our main screen. Now we're going to start by adding the background. So expand the assets folder and you have background.png for that. Click and drag it on the view and you can keep the Alt key down, as you can see in the top left, to change the node type. We don't want a sprite here. Instead, we want the texture rectangle. Texture rectangle is a resizable texture that you can use for user interface. And so the texture will appear where you dropped it, where your mouse cursor was when you released the mouse click. Now we want to have it fit our main screen, our user interface here. So select the background node, and that's where we're going to start using the layout menu that appears in the toolbar when you select one of these green nodes. Layout contains a number of options to scale, anchor, and move your UI nodes. So go to the layout menu and select full rectangle. This is going to move and resize your background texture so that it fits the full rectangle of its parent. Let me select the expand option here that will allow us to resize the texture or crop some of it. With the background node selected, I'm going to resize it to make it much smaller, and again go to layout, full rectangle, and you can see that it scales to fit the main screen here. Now if you select the main screen and you resize it, you will get the background to resize alongside it. So select the background node again, and in the inspector you have a stretch mode that you want to change so that it does not get scaled, but the texture gets cropped instead. So you can choose tall. And when you choose that and you start to resize the background, you will see that the texture will only get cropped. But if you expand it on the x-axis, it will get expanded. Next up, we're going to add some text to our title screen. So select the main screen node, press Ctrl A, and you want to look for label. Label is a basic text box if you want. Very simple. So you're going to see it added in the top left of our view, and the node is very small. With the label selected, the first thing you want to change is the text in the inspector. So let's call it my first game, something like that, my first good game. Well, I'm going to place it at the center of the screen. So go to Layout with the node selected and Center Top. This will make the node's position relative to that center top anchor. So press the W key to select the Move tool and click Shift and drag it down to make the node live at an offset, vertical offset from the top left corner. The text a bit small, we're going to change it in the next video, but for now we're going to work with that. So selecting the main screen, again, I'm going to resize it, and you will see that the text stays centered horizontally, and it stays at a fixed relative offset from the top corner here. Now we're going to add the buttons. So let's add a button. You want to press Ctrl A again, look for the button node and add that. Again, it gets added to the top left of the screen. We want to resize it a bit with the Select tool active, and we can add some text to the button as well. So you can call this one Play for the play button, and we're going to duplicate it. So select the button scene, Control D to duplicate it, W, shift click and drag down with the shift key down to move it down, and the second button will be Quit. Now, the thing is, you want to use these anchor system and the layout to make sure that the position of your control nodes is relative to the parent, in this case the main screen node. So select the two buttons, and just to show you, I'm going to move them manually to the screen center, in which case when I resize the parent, the main screen, the buttons will not follow, right? Now the thing is, we also want these buttons to stay aligned, to be contained in some kind of box together. For that, you have a special type of nodes in Godot, the containers. So select the main screen and let's add a new node, not button this time. We're going to look for the container node. And when you look for that, the main container, the container class, is designed to allow you to create custom containers via code. But you have a number of nodes that you can use by default, especially the box containers here. HBox container is going to be a set of columns if you want, and VBox container is going to give you a set of rows. So let's add a VBox container. With that VBox container selected, we're going to go to Layout, Center, so it's going to center the node, and then we just have to select our two buttons in the inspector, click and drag them inside the VBox container, and they will magically align and resize to fit the VBox container. So then you want to change the size of that VBox container node. So you can click on one of the corners with Control and Alt held down. So you're going to resize the box so that it gives a bit more space for the buttons. And then you will see that the buttons have some kind of minimum vertical size here, which is actually based on the text size. We want to force the buttons to expand to take all the available space in the VBox container. So select the two buttons, and when you select several similar nodes like these and you change properties in the inspector, you're going to change the value on all of the nodes, all of the children. So we're going to go to the size flags category, expand it, and then you will see you have horizontal and vertical flags. These trigger some special modes or behaviors on the control nodes. Expand vertically means that the nodes will resize vertically to take all the available space, and they will compete for space. So for example, if I remove the expand size flag on just one button, look at what happens. The other button expands to take as much space as possible, respecting the minimum size of the other button. If both of them have the expand flag on, they will share the space half and half. And then you have a stretch ratio value that can change to make one node take more space than the other. With that, we have our base menu. So I'm just going to move the label a little bit, and we're going to do a few more things. First, we're going to rename some of the nodes to keep our work clean. So the label we'll rename to title because it's the game title. For VBox container, we can say menu, that contains the buttons. Then for the buttons, we're going to call the first one play button, and the second one is going to be the quit button. We're also going to do one more thing. We're going to save these nodes to separate scenes so that they become reusable UI components. So right click on title, save branch as scene, and go to source. We're going to create a new folder. We'll call it user interface. Okay. And inside that folder, we'll save our title as a scene. Right click on play button, save the branch as scene. Same thing, it will be in your user interface folder by default. So save there. And finally, same thing for the quit button. Because we will reuse these nodes, the title will be for any text that should have the title font in our game, and the buttons to play and quit are going to be reusable buttons. But with that, save your main scene. We're going to save the main screen here in a new folder once again that we will call screens. These are going to be entire separate screens from our game levels. So main screen, save. You can do one last thing. It's to go to project settings, the run category, and our main scene, the one that loads when we press the F5 key, was our level 1 until now. Press the folder icon, click it, and let's use our main screen instead. So go to the screen folder, double click on main screen to make it so when you press F5, it will launch your main screen. And you can see that you can already interact with the buttons and you will see your text and all. But for now, nothing's happening because, of course, we haven't coded anything. Anyway, in the next part, we're going to add the font to make our text readable.